Hi, everyone. I'm Sylvia Chi. I'm the Senior Strategist with Just Solutions Collective, and I work on providing policy analysis to support BIPOC frontline environmental justice groups around the country. So the Inflation Reduction Act is a really significant moment in terms of being the United States' biggest climate law ever passed, but it's important to understand it in context. By itself, the IRA does not create a transition away from fossil fuels. New and renewed tax credit incentives for energy will total $271 billion over the next decade, but that depends on private sector actors taking advantage of those tax credits. Long-standing fossil fuel subsidies have not been repealed, and there are various provisions of the IRA that expressly enable continued fossil fuel production and extend more support to the fossil fuel industry through both tax credits and direct financial assistance. The White House says there are $60 billion in environmental justice investments in the law. Our section by section analysis found $40 billion or $27 billion in appropriations alone. That's just 7% of all spending in the bill. Another big part of the story of the Inflation Reduction Act is the side deal that was struck between Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senator Joe Manchin when they were negotiating the Inflation Reduction Act. And this side deal is supposed to be comprehensive permitting reform that's passed by the end of September 2022. And it's supposed to expedite permitting for energy and infrastructure projects subject to environmental review. But we have not seen the official legislative language yet. And the summary that's been published and shared by Senator Manchin's office has a lot of provisions in it that are really worrying and can undermine some important protections that are provided by the National Environmental Policy Act, which is a cornerstone of environmental law that enables frontline communities to provide their input and to have their voice heard and to be able to access the kind of environmental analysis to better understand the impacts of these proposed projects. One other point about the side deal is that it's often talked about in terms of both fossil fuel and clean energy projects require permitting reform. And it's not clear to me that that's actually true in terms of clean energy projects. In fact, there have been a lot of investments and policy changes already in effect that were passed in the infrastructure law that will facilitate transmission, permitting, and siting. So I have not heard yet any explanation for why those changes, as well as the funding that's in the Inflation Reduction Act to help with transmission siting, is not enough, and why more is needed in this permitting bill. This permitting bill could be very problematic and cause a lot of damage to the frontline communities that are already suffering a lot.